Back to the Traders Network show, broadcasting worldwide from Greenwich, Connecticut. I'm Matt Bird. We're here at the 2019 Greenwich Economic Forum, and my next guest is Meg Starr. She is the principal and head of impact for the Carlyle Group. Meg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So you're coming hot off a panel right now, and we've got a bunch of thought leaders here. Can you give me a little bit of a takeaway, or give our audience a little bit of a takeaway of what you talked about up there and what's going on?
Yeah, so the panel is really interesting. We were talking about where ESG investing has been and where it's going. And I think it's a field that gets a bad rap because people hear ESG and SRI and CSR, and it can mean a lot of things and it can mean nothing. And I think the point of the panel was trying to tease apart how do you separate out more values-based investing from where ESG integration actually adds material value to an investment portfolio. And I think that's the state of the art for where we are today.
Well, it's a very sophisticated looking at the economic climate of those investments, but do you believe that the CSR aspect is really addressing the long-term consumer application of those investments?
Yeah, so at the Carlyle Group, we're a private investment firm, and we're in the business of buying good companies and making them great companies. And as we think about the next few decades, great companies create sustainable economic value.
Right.
And I think we have potentially some misconceptions about the word sustainable in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that and you think people wearing Birkenstocks and dancing around a campfire.
Right.
And sustainability means literally the ability to persist over time, and that's what we're looking for.
What is some of the be our eyes and ears for a minute? You've been in the room for catching a lot of the content in the panels. What are some of the big takeaways for you so far?
I think the big takeaways are it does feel like we're at a pivotal point for capitalism, and you've seen that with the Business Roundtable statement, which was issued a few weeks ago. 180 different CEOs signed on to that, including the Carlyle Group CEO, Kyu-Sung Lee. It's affirming the fact that companies work for all of their stakeholders, and so how do you think about the various stakeholders as core to generating economic value? And I think that's really starting to pervade the conversation here, and in fact, that really is the topic of Davos in the next year. And so I think we've seen that as a pretty interesting trend for something that used to be almost a niche corner of the investment market is really coming into the mainstream.
Now, Davos is something I have a lot of experience on. We covered it the last 5 years, and the theme, walking into that, much like today, is about public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
How are public-private partnerships playing in economic development?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things I've seen over my career is the idea of, public sector and particularly NGOs and nonprofit organizations have incredible data and incredible resources because that's what they've built their careers and their organizations around. The challenge is how do you translate that into investment application? And so I think one thing that's really interesting is to think about how do you play that middle role? And so, a lot of investors are concerned about climate change. How do you know what that means to a given company with its, large supply chain and the different property, plant, and equipment that it has? There's some really interesting NGOs that have done incredible work mapping sea level rise, mapping, increased weather-related incidents. And so I think, particularly in the world of ESG and impact investing, how do we get the incredible data and work that's been done from the public sector and the NGO sector and make it relevant?
It's an interesting thing when you look at like commodities and futures and those sorts of things, and you start looking at climate change. Does Carlyle Group look at it within a 10-year, a 20, or 30, or an infinite timeline? I mean, how do you look at the investment strategy on that side?
I mean, kind of all of the above. A big part of it is what asset class are you focused on and what is your hold period. There are some risks that will be really material in the next potentially 12 months. You think about the weather-related events we've had, you have to be really aware of where all of the different properties are for a given company, because if there's a disaster, we need to know how to respond. We need to know how to get back to business as usual. At the same time, as we think about, energy investing, the energy transition is happening, but it's going to happen over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And so how do you prepare for the future while still making prudent decisions today?
Well, I would love that tip. Listen, transitioning into the forum specifically, we had a governor, we had the mayor, we have obviously your CEO, we had a bunch of other thought leaders here. How important is this to Connecticut? Building this private partnership, thought leadership type of environment, bringing all of this leadership to one area.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important, and I think what I like the most about this event is that I go to a lot of ESG and impact events that can sometimes seem like an echo chamber, where it's people that are already true believers talking to each other.
Right.
And I think the wonderful thing about the Greenwich Economic Forum is that you have the best thinkers from across all of these different industries, and they're being exposed to topics that might not be part of their day job, but that people are interested in learning about and are really digging into here. And so I much prefer to speak with investors here about material ESG topics, because that that can probably move the needle more than talking to people who do it full
You know, it's
time.
interesting, and you're dealing with a very comfortable demographic because like minds are here, and they're all the decision makers that need to make decisions on those topics,
Yeah.
on sustainability and impact.
Yeah. And you saw that, some of the bigger names from earlier today, Paul Tudor Jones. He founded Just Capital, which is a nonprofit entirely dedicated to getting better data on just corporate behavior. David Rubenstein, who's one of the founders of the Carlyle group where I work, he is focused on how do you think about kind of where the world is going and how do we invest so that all stakeholders benefit. And so I think the other interesting thing is hearing from the very top why this is mission critical, and that differs across asset classes and industries and strategies. But this idea of where the world is going is something that's really top of mind.
I know you're really busy, and we got to cut to commercial break in just a few minutes. Any key takeaways you'd like the audience to know that you picked up here, and what's next for Carlyle Group?
So I think one of the things that came out of our panel is the idea that ESG investing is just investing. And so how do you apply the same level of rigor and discipline that you take to any other investing question? It's another lens of looking for material risks and return opportunities in a changing world. And so, ESG investing and increasingly impact investing, which is focused on growth markets and driving measurable social and environmental impacts, it's possible to do well. You just have to take the same level of rigor to it.
And so what can we expect from Carlyle Group in the next 5 years?
You'll have to stay tuned.
Oh, I love that. Meg Starr, everybody, with the Carlyle Group. She's the principal and head of Impact. We will be right back after these messages. Special thanks to our affiliate partners, ABC, NBC, Fox, and CBS. Don't go away. You're not going to want to miss our next guest.
The 2019 Greenwich Economic Forum is brought to you by Bridgewater Associates. Meaningful work, meaningful relationships. Churchill Asset Management, Nuveen, a leading provider of senior and unitranche debt to middle market companies. Ropes & Gray, bright past, brilliant future. Aurora Capital, inspiring partnerships. And Gramercy Funds Management, we are emerging markets. Special considerations to Bank of America, life's better when we're connected. Noah Private Wealth Management, a leading wealth and asset management service provider in China. Guotai Jinan Futures, a leading brokerage firm for commodity futures and financial futures in China. China Industrial Securities, a comprehensive financial group providing full-spectrum financial services in Hong Kong. And Titan Advisors, built like a hedge fund. Special thanks to the Financial Times and Greenwich Business Institute for hosting us. And thank you to all the sponsors who helped make this event possible. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.